Land by Lisa Bright Eyes Richardson Durez. Land, dirt, living, breathing, thriving. Our ancestors sustained, our ancestors cultivated, our ancestors defended, our ancestors learned. We were shaped by the land, and the land was shaped by us. Artifacts, fossils, dwellings, food, sustaining life, absorbing us at the end of our lives. Generations living, breathing, thriving, returning home, to live, to breathe, to thrive. Together, the ancestors and I.
A poem by Joe Wilson. As the tide ebbs and flows along the banks of the Rappahannock, the winds of change have a similar effect in our lives. A fair wind has met the face of a proud people, and a legacy awakened, as land once lost, has been restored along with the dreams of a nation. The restless souls of our native ancestors now have reason for peace. Future generations now have the opportunity to live and thrive on sacred ground. I can hear the singing in the forest and the thunder of drums, celebrating a homecoming and return to glory. There is much to appreciate having recovered a land once lost. Rappahannock peoples past, present, and future have much to be happy for. In celebrating this return, we must also understand that there is more to be done. Brighter days ahead with more promise than ever before. Each of us doing what we can do to lift up our brothers and sisters.
Subtracted and added. Water subtracted, diverted, pushed and pulled, half the flow, they say, stone and wood. Made to move to the wishes of man, cottonseed oil, tents for soldiers, flour for my grandmother. Frenzied mill villages, structures replacing nature, 60 hours for men, women, and children, white only. Others worked in nearby fields. The mighty Appomattox, a bridge at the most narrow point, with a nod to the lower falls, knowing that we would use it, that we would need it. Tall pines for nesting eagles, rapids for sturgeon and shad, solid rock exposed to the sun, ancestors along the banks. All waited for day's return, when they could be what they once were. We could rejoice once again on the mighty Appomattox.
Walk in winter woods. The squirrel's gray blurs into the woods gray, into the fog, into the distant road song of yesterday's steeled gray, mirrored gray. Today's all soft, worn, gathering inward. Even the squirrel's hands pull close against the chest. There's the leg curve, little ear curves, the S curve of the tail, all gray, backed in gray. It's the time of deep struggle, when we wander the dim woods, parable gray, watchful gray, seed and stone gray, winter gray, ground gray, carried through the gray until all is the gray of grace and the pale trace of splendor.
Ever. You should repeat names of all you love to ensure they never die, which makes death an imprecise way to explain the transmutation of all that lives, since anything that lives must end. To converse with the land of ancestors known and not is to mourn what inexactness takes, while we search for home away from the ones we call by its name. I am in Ghana, then Virginia, home of my father and his before Daddy made mine North. We speak my grandfather's name often. Daddy is last of his sons, then daughters. He is becoming Pop-Pop's image and drawl. At the edge of overgrown land, fertilized by blood, flesh, dignity of men like my people, called as inexactly as dead and home, not. I work on remembering. Like all living things, soil dies. Like all that dies, all it holds, all it carries, does not expire. It ends in the way it is known. Soil becomes a collection of new things, over and over, like cells in the bodies hold our history, carry us toward new things we become, like food for soil for one, and so on, and so on, and so.
Legacy. In its skin of alluvial story, this stone limbed between river and roadway where the slow carving of ridge to curve is a love letter from the sky, carried over epochs by the rain that falls here, sometimes in blankets, sometimes not at all, sometimes causing the river to rise and rise. Downstream from the dam, forged in a more recent past, the fishing weir for shad and bass that offered energy to the grist mills of a growing city and carved a canal that became a footnote of a nation. Here, the current runs coolly over low rapids so quiet the still sleepy skeleton of granite and tumbled ballast stone hardly notices. Rocks have other agendas. The gentle rub of the James against the feet of these woods becomes part of their pulse. The river's breath etching new tattoos into the land it kisses. Love ever a chemical reaction, a composition becoming, a something to outlast.
Hi, I'm Shruti Kupa, a Northern Virginia Conservation Trust board member. NVCT has been working for nearly 30 years to protect Northern Virginia's public open space by working with counties and private landowners who understand the importance of conserving land and water. As our surrounding communities become more highly dense, it's important that we are advocating for all of the folks who make up our resident population. We work tirelessly with communities to be our region's go-to land trust and to live up to our mission of saving nearby nature.
Born in a land of opportunity, and my chance to talk about a land maintained by NVCT and Northern Virginia Conservation we trust. But first, give credit to the people who came before us. Liz McLaughlin, who's writing in the land, united all of us. Ann Terrible, may God bless your soul. Your land is in a good place. I hope you're looking down and you know. See, Ann spent decades in that house and knowing that land. She loved and maintained the beautiful flowers and the gardens. Place ease to your mind, a place to unwind, a place to call mind, lovely design. Birds chirp, the sun shines. Soft grass, memories of the past. We can find a way to make sure this land lasts. In Arlington, where there's lots of construction and high-rise buildings, we don't want to ever lose sight of what our ancestors were building, conserving land so we have stories to tell our children. Friends of Urban Agriculture and their plot against hunger is a program designed to use produce from the land and distribute it to people who are dealing with hunger. Come on. In a town of laws and legislator, we have a conservation trust where the mission is to conserve land and save nearby nature. Take a chance to enjoy this land and understand that we've got a plan to make sure we stay in control of our land.
Seeing You with Eyes Closed by Nicola McGough. Spring wind meets beech tree sitting on a rise by the marsh. Desiccated leaves rattle by the thousands, sounding like a distant round of applause at some great Broadway show, or a fast approaching summer rain shower racing towards me. The creak of a dead pine tree leaning overhead. Small songbirds busy themselves beneath the greenbriers, flitting up dead leaves, their frantic footfall a pitter-patter of beginning rainfall. A crow caws and wheels away to my left as a woodpecker reaches deep into a beech tree, a thonk, thonk, thonk echoing in the distance, while a red-winged blackbird incessantly chirps nearby. Water birds' songs dissonant in the distance, the gruff croak of a blue heron, and the syncopated quack of Canada geese headed north for the summer. After a time, I only hear my own silence, the slowing of my heartbeat, the stillness of my breath, gratitude at remembering this way of being as stillness returns to my noisy inner mindscape.
My name is Bettina Ring, and I'm the Virginia State Director of the Nature Conservancy. We're the largest environmental organization in the world. We have a mission that protects biodiversity, addresses a changing climate, and makes sure that we're doing this for all that depend on our Earth. And it's a mission that I'm very passionate about. I'm also passionate about poetry, and I believe that language can really help us best describe the places that we have been protecting across the Commonwealth of Virginia. From one end of the state to the other, we have had an impact for decades here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're fortunate to be working with 6 poets that have been highlighting 5 places that are very special to us. Those places include Warm Springs Mountain, our Pinelands work where we do longleaf restoration, the Volcano Virginia Coast Reserve, the Cumberland Forest, and the Clinch River, and Buck Mountain, where we've protected an easement that's a model easement for work that we've done across the state. Replicating these types of easements helps us protect land and in turn protect biodiversity. We're excited about Writing the Land and the fact that we've been able to work with these very talented and gifted poets. We would like to invite you to visit these places that these 6 poets have written about. We're very excited about these special places, and we think that you'll find them to be special as well. And if you want to learn more, I encourage you to go to our website, Places We Protect, at nature.org/Virginia.
Waiting is a Shade of Green by Doug Van Gundy. If these hills are still green, then green must be the most patient hue. Zen green, waiting green, indecisive green. Been there, still there, green. Trees seem dabbled along Warm Springs Mountain and down the slopes in shades of olive and viridian, emerald, sap and cadmium green, waiting to oxidize brown or be scraped from the canvas of the Alleghenies, leaving only gray ghosts and damaged ground. Orange is action, and blue is placid, and red is pure passion, but green is take it as it comes, whatever works for you, very laissez-faire, awaiting the rising tide of autumn and whatever it is that comes next.
This is Indigo Erickson, 2024 Riding the Land poet for the Nature Conservancy, the Piney Grove Reserve. This poem is called 2 Lines. I would tell you of the 2 lines wrapped around a pine tree that announce the red cockaded woodpecker, and how the fire-brown leaves of this understory mean light and breath. I would show you that these locked gates transform into the long lives of forest. I would tell you of a cypress swamp in the ancestral lands of the Nottoway, of moonlight filtering through pine, of a hidden flower, only 2 of which exist now, of enslaved bodies buried without namestone, of the old war and the new one coming. I would tell you the GPS coordinates, the passcode for entry, the hidden key. If only you did not demand this as your birthright. If only you would not carve your name into the bark. If only you could break open your marrow and let loose your wild spirit. If only you were still. If only you might hold the call of the bird above you in palms gentle and bend.
Hi, my name is Chelsea Krieg, and I'll be reading my poem Before I Knew What It Meant, Cape Charles, Virginia, for the Virginia Coast Reserve. Before I knew what it meant, Cape Charles, Virginia. In the first chill of November, cattails waver where we step, as catbirds whine above, and we know that here the Virginia coastline is sinking. Ghost forests haunt the marsh with silver skin and roots that surrender to a rush of salt and the weight of every slender body that passes. In the clearing, my mother teaches me how to mourn, to crush wild fennel between thumb and pointer, breathe in its sweet anise. She baptizes each stalk, sea oat, sumac, groundsel, goldenrod. Wasps' nest cling under a nearby bridge like a church organ, and our footsteps are soft as the prayer I whispered as a child. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take, before I knew what it meant. Overhead, crows heave their dark voices like a choir, and we slip along the banks to collect their songs. Scientists call the bobwhite near threatened, and we search for broods under briar thickets and call to them by name. Once I thought I heard a reply, but it is always, always my mother's voice echoing back to me.
Insuring the land. All this, what one could still gesture at with a sweep of an arm. Coppery stretches of sand flats, gel-like pools of water, asterisked by slender birds. Hems of hills ringed with stands of stalwart green. Thickets of greenbrier, cedar, and pine. Salt marsh cordgrass across the estuary. We want to gather them in, as if to hold, as if we could. Each ruffled frond and call in the softer hours, each speckled staff of sea ox-eye and goldenrod. Insurance is the word we use for the fear of risk underlining every desire. Knowing as we do of war's broad mantle, storm surges that breach the reefs and barriers, forcing their way into every box of keepsakes in the basement, roofs that cave in from the unrelenting sorrows of rain. We're always paying to underwrite the cost of coming tragedies, the cost of restoration of these habitats, paying with coin, with sand-castled futures of human and non-human beings not yet even born.
The title of this poem is Clinch Cumberland. I am a clinch river running, a forever water dashing, as aqua white pouring over against the backbones of my cliffs. Those whose hands bury into me will lift them as open palms drenched of surviving clams still alive, proof that life is still worth living. You can hear my fluidity gush between the teeth of rocks, falling over the green moss of Cumberland stones. Hear the boughs of trees bow into my cold brook. I am a temple of countless trees, loved on by the grace of human hands. I am a forest for the living bird, perched to a dangling branch, staring to an endless sky. I am a mountain of whispering white water falling, crashing into a rippling wave. You can see the puffy white clouds on the mirror of my waters move against the stillness of my river. And flowers, they bob their heads, wiggling in the fall wind, bouncing over the tall grass, stretching their long necks afar. My flowing run like blood, through the tunnels of veins, passing through Powell and through Holston's path, my flowing is like blood. Where muscles filter me, protecting me from harm, clinging to the unclean. If I am alive, then those who dwell in me live, not as the undead, floating as pollution does. Tell me, what is the heartbeat of a river? Perhaps it is the bass flinging itself in midair and plunging back into me.
On land under perpetual conservation easements, Buck Mountain Creek, Virginia. Cold comfort, the frost moon, exposed tendon, broken bone. The hide bunched at the fetlock like a slipped sock where the deer caught the wire as it leapt, flipped, hung spraddled there until I cut it down unceremoniously, unsure whether it would live or die. A ghostly rag snagged in the last flood, a blackened host of leaves in the root of a sycamore. I look for assurances that death here isn't in its final senses. The land's intact, these tracks redeeded to their primal natures. So always the creek, its lifeblood everywhere. Somewhere the deer, bone shine, shadow limbs, midnight blue sky, from which we conjure perpetuity.
I'm Amy Wright, and this poem was written for the Clinch Mountain Wildlife Management Area. Panther Lick Trail. In the rain, in the refugium, I bow over clay cauldrons of paw prints, overspilling as the wetwater stream refills. Does mostly, a lone raccoon minding mealtime wash-up. But suppose a different silhouette rivers this bone-flecked meadow, a predator more warranted to bolt a deer from this tongue-slicked mineral earth. Not us unarmed hikers strowing human scent on the wind, first day of bow season. Bucks have counted the day in their coats as surely as the oaks have marked twilight's thinning. Ghosts of the hunt bend to drink, hides shivering to rouse flies, minute nuisances. None of the blood rush from the chase in the seep to backlight their iron-soaked eyes. None of the big cat namesakes trail signs hint at. Yet, with time or prey enough, recovery of the whole host of life may be inevitable. Such is the reach of 25,477 protected acres. I startled a black bear into a gallop, our last walk here. This time, we sing notice of our presence, trading lyrics about a hitchhiking folk singer. Knee-high, then hip-side, then overhead, winged sunflowers limn the trail. We ascend until we cannot see each other or ahead. Subsumed by a world where rainfall, sunlight, and topsoil matter most, we emerge from the thicket of self-interest. On a grassy bald, my love pauses to absorb the panorama from White Rock Cove to Red Rock Preserve, 360 degrees of siltstone and limestone cliffs, painted plains, locusts and maples turning in their autumn dress. At our feet scattered gold and white, Asteraceae and Stellaria, different ways to say starlight, he says, and just like that, the heart, cracked as a dry stream bed, refills.
My name is Zena Azam, and I'm reading my poem titled Something Spectacular. It was after we saw a sassafras that sprouted one-lobed, two-lobed, three-lobed leaves all on the same branch, and beheld the crown of elderberry shining white against an azure sky, then climbed the winding path to visit the hidden lake skirting the Blue Ridge Mountains, dragonflies and damselflies flitting about. It was after we spent hours on the trails noticing scat piles of bears, coyotes, foxes, pondering how the serotinous cones of the Table Mountain pine rely on extreme heat, even fire, to melt resin and release their seeds, how seeds of other trees disperse with the help of animals, a nudge, the wind. It was after all that, and we got back in the truck and started to wend our way down the mountain, when the friendly lands manager suddenly decided to backtrack on the dirt road. "I'll show you something spectacular," he said. Something worth going back to, it seemed, despite the intense July sun. He drove to a small patch of green on the side of the road, dotted with scarlet bee balm, miniature heads of flame strewn wildly about, hummingbirds homing in on brilliant red petals. He then explained that their coarse leaves make poultices that soothe stings and wounds, nature's mamas that offer healing, beckon to balm. We ended our day in awe of the beauty and gifts of those scarlet whorls before I contemplated returning to my urban world.
Long walk down to the field. It's easier in December than in the heat of June. The view? Large rectangles of bright cerulean sky, rows of brown earth framed by the evergreen. So many pine rows hint at the history of loblolly cut and processed upriver for pulp. There's an industrial, man-made feel to these woods. I come at this hour to sit in a fallow field, watch for deer, the sky for migrating fowl. Listen, chickadees and the goldfinches searching among the dried remains for food. Reclining in the sun, a broken stalk, the dense sunflower, its 7-inch diameter head, threadbare, swaying in wind of 5 knots, the weight of its head bowing to a ground that sprouts dandelions. I grasp the head, pinch, rub, and release fluff, fuzz, and black seeds. Separate the edibles, chew, swallow. Relish the gift of this small black entity. Not just food, but a testament to continuation, a possibility of new growth.
A land not mine, but ours. Sit quietly on the dock of the impoundment. It is November and the land is flooded, a watery stepping stone for birds migrating across the Chesapeake Bay. Lie back and let the sun warm your face. Shut your eyes, listen. You first hear a hush you've never identified as sound before. But today you do. Then, slowly, other sounds begin as the orchestra readies itself. A concert master fine-tunes the bird section composed of different timbres, pitches, and calls. Frogs lay the bass foundation while the drone of flies creates a Doppler effect as they crescendo and decrescendo in your ears. They are the hardest to wrestle into tune. A lone bird screeches a startling cymbal crash. The caw of a disgruntled musician accompanies the frog as she plops into the water, taking an early break. In the distance, a car door slams, a plane flies overhead, a backing vehicle beeps, the lone dog howls. Forget these civilized sounds, I think, and return to the sun and sounds of the deck. The breeze, an instrument playing so subtly with sound and silence, wafts across my ears. I smile at a creature sounding like a stick scraping a gourd. I love these sounds, yet know so little about them. I am simply glad the wild has welcomed me to a land that is not mine, but might become, with respect and love on my part, ours.
Hey guys, my name's Dorinda Wegner, and my land this year was the Virginia Department of Wildlife, the Dick Cross Wildlife Management Area. Sparrow, towhee, tanager, blue. In the glorious seasonal sun, birds pitch from ponderosa pines, littering the roadside ditch of the old field, dappled by light and saw-tooth shadows. Birds pitch from the ponderosa pines, cresting upon the staghorn sumac, dappled by light and saw-tooth shadows. Erect clusters of crimson berries that persist. Cresting upon the staghorn sumac, littering the roadside ditch of the old field. Erect clusters of crimson berries that persist into the glorious seasonal sun. Thanks.
Elders. The field's winter stubble, wicker stiff, broken, bright, gruff, good rug made of sun, weaves my way to the woods. Dark stairway up the mountain, leaf humus cloaked, gummy alive, rain steeped, cold tea soaked. Sturdy with lichen stubbed rocks. The spiny ridge connects the clouds and clammy floors below. The deep life of earth and our call to disappear. All my elders, alive again, materialize through this love. And I'm vaporized in longing, totally here and gone with them.
Nelson County Triptych.
The epigraph is from Mary Ruffel. I study nature so as not to do foolish things. Part 1, The Ty River. For the 125 victims of Hurricane Camille, Nelson County, Virginia, 1969. From high seeps, draining distance from Blue Ridge Mountains, rivulets to creeks, creeks to streams, streams confluencing to rivers like desires that appear to have no discernible origin, but accumulate, a willfulness that cannot be held back. Tumult, tumble, the grind is soon calmed by slow hills. The cursive meander flows like a cuddling lullaby. The reflection of clouds, the same for every dreamy watercourse. The river seems motionless on the world's curve, but the flat polish breaks from mystery at questioning shallows. Riffles whisper deceptive messages, dark dirges for our drowning in the world's elemental grief. Those roaring rocks, shifting souls, form new memories of before and after, even as our art struggles to provide relief. The river, ever heaven's blue calligraphy. Part 2, Shambles of Time. The gray field of bottomland is but texture, not the cultivated velour of winter wheat or the simple nap of cattle-grazed pastures, but vernacular memories of goldenrod now without luster, dogbane flying its dry, twisted banners. Profusions of winter weeds are without weave, are scribbled grasses of a child's penciled joy. The only chaperones are the pines among them. These few acres have yielded their linear crops to the fractal madness of nature's way. That once plowed wilderness is anxious for spring's gravid green, gay colors, and naked abandon. Part 3, Round Rebirth. Sun opens the eastern gate as casual as any routine, to glance the greening hill, the last frost glistening. Moles rumble relentlessly in old vestibules. Spiders and snakes yawn in the thaw of hibernation dreams. Field stones slide ever so slightly toward gravity's given. The nocturnal wanderers have left their presence in defiant tracks, feathers, fur, and scat. On the hilltop height, I contemplate how men have always fought over land, how the earth would flourish without the human hand, sun rising to its shadows, barcodes, tree lines, and shines with promise on this small patch of ground. Here, overlooking tangled fields, resolute river, without electronic distraction of beep and ping, I strive to fit this life to the orbit of my days.
Hello, I am Annie Woodford, and I am reading a poem written in honor of the Dyers family land in Martinsville, Virginia, preserved with the help of the Southern Virginia Land Conservancy. Green space. In the middle of Martinsville, I found a grove. There were no people there, and in the silence, scrub pines swept the sky, the ground made fragrant by generations of falling needles. There was silence in the middle of the city, and the good scent of dirt, Small birds foraging in thickets beat upon the silence with their wings, and in the middle of the city, someone had set aside a library of trees for no other reason than to make sure the asters went to seed, the crows cast shadows, and the moss grew decades deep and green, full of something like solace. We can take our grief to these woods. We can wait for light to stripe land logged too many times to count, land that will be logged no longer. Into this grove of wind-stirred trees, we can say the names of our dead. We can call on our ancestors. We can summon possum and city deer, their small foraging existences proof against all the pills poured into our loved ones' work-torn bodies, all the money made through our bodies and the bodies of our ancestors, money that did not stay. The silver dollars the factory owner tossed to his workers on Christmas Day, and we dived for those dollars. Oh, yes, we did. For we, too, were like the animals who build nests out of their own fur. Starvation, always a possibility. But like the animals hidden here, we survive, and someone has left some trees, sap rising in black pines, the very essence of angels, maybe, blinding and strange, their many-eyed wings stirring constantly, like the tops of these pines, which is another way of saying, setting aside a few hundred acres in the middle of the city is one true way to love folks. Give us a place to contemplate not only our own history, and maybe grieve in the quiet of trees, but crow call and squirrel crash, the bark torn fresh by deer rub, the sound our own bodies make moving through deep leaves, what it means to stop, hold still, find a hush of pines. Hear how the land forgets and remembers everything. How the forest absolves and stands outside absolution. All the Piedmont, an ancient seabed, singing us back into ourselves.
My name is Wayne David Hubbard, and I will be reading poems for the Bull Run Mountain Preserve under the stewardship of the Virginia Outdoor Foundation. This is for the Writing the Land project. The End of Longing. Stones cobbled into a waist-high wall. Web and seed tangled in the crevice. An emerald moss faced southward. Still river marks marking the light. How am I to know what a tree root can taste? What else comes after enough? Succor the blossom, the dead waiting leaf, a grinding sky, released.
The Hall by Chelsea Harlan. Great artwork falling in the hall of the forest after a good rain, in furthermost wings. Warm thuds of nuts and spells of seeds begin again. Brown on green, on ground, on slick black and gray, bark and more brown and old green and moss and soil, a slow process, a practice, the infinity within us, a silence in my hand. This is the day versus this is a day, any day, but it all has meaning. Hounds bay far away. A rooster remembers the hour.
Whispers in the woods. Another tree falls into the muck of Tupelo forest, and we hear nothing. It is here the slightest opening of leaves makes way for light. How we all want to believe a loved one dies peacefully in his sleep, then miscount the number of downed trunks covered in moss. High above us, the old cypress looks through the mist of her last 600 years. Her whispers tell us the way out is the same path we created traveling in. And still, we are surrounded by particles of dust. Call it resurrection, bubbles breaking the surface of a puddle, the scar of footprint healing as mud reclaims its skin.
My name is Felicia Mitchell, and I'm sitting here on the historic grounds of White's Mill in Washington County, Virginia. Behind me is Tool Creek, which is the inspiration for this poem. Ode to Tool Creek, White's Mill. Begins with an epigraph. What was once a name forgotten, then Shiphaki, Sippy, then Hogahiji, then the Holston River, its creeks veining through the hills of Virginia. Ebony jewel-winged damselflies flitting from one patch of speedwell to another have visited this creek since it carved a path through valley to river before a mill was built, before the creek was named or renamed, water cycling and recycling between earth and sky. There was a time this creek quenched thirst, gave rise to fish, bathed hands and feet, and then channeled to pond, to sluice, to overshot wheel. This land's water served its community anew, creating cornmeal that is out of this world, literally out of this world, out of this earth moving rain and groundwater into corn. Even now, the creek persists, winding through hills, the willows and wild plants and flowers on its bank, as lush as they ever were. Wrens chatting, crows cawing, damselflies flitting, frogs croaking, water rushing as it reaches for the North Fork of the Holston River, its path by White's Mill, a passage through time.
Here be dragons. In a dream, this mountain is a monster asleep in its cradle, tucked under the tattered edges of an old blanket or a weathered map. And in this dream, my feet follow the faint glitter of cartography. Ascending the half-buried steps of half-broken plating along a steep tail twitching restlessly back and forth. Climbing across ridges of rolling vertebrae, slowly rising and falling in a rugged tempo, tracing a cardiogram of time upon earth. Sweeping by branches of spiky fir, ruffled in a wind camouflaging the hiding and the seeking, games being played by other feet. Eventually coming to a feather carried down to the ground with the arrow of its quiet exclamation point aimed at the sky. And I turn my head to follow the wild winged shadow of an ancient beast, rising
only to discover a mountain escaping from the dream and ready to plunge into the open blue horizons of unknown depths above.
Hello, I'm Jim Minnick, and it's great to be part of the Writing the Land project. So thank you to all the organizers of that project, as well as all the other poets and artists who have contributed to the projects, as well as all the organizations that held the easements to the land, particularly for us, the Virginia Outdoors Foundation. We live in Southwest Virginia on a beautiful farm that I'm so grateful has an easement on it. And the poem I'm going to read is about this farm and some of the long history of abuse that we've inherited and we've tried to work with. The idea, I hope that I can pull this off, the poem is in 4 stanzas, and each stanza takes place in a different place on the farm that has somehow has a story behind it. So this first stanza takes place on a hillside here that has lots of trees, but it was logged probably roughly 60 years ago, and the scars of that logging are still evident. Some of the trees have huge scars that are, that made them hollow. And then on the ground here, there's a road that was a skid trail where they drug the logs out. And thankfully, the erosion has not been that bad here, but the soil is so compacted by the machinery that nothing's really grown on that road. What if we learn at last, but the land stops forgiving? To the men who logged this land in 1965, leaving tire ruts clogged with leaves and scarred oaks hollow and now tall, arching over skid trails, green alleys, I hike, pressing down with each step the already compacted soil that a lifetime later still grows nothing for all. Thank you. To the men who logged this land when they came home from the war, the civil one, to find old growth so ripe it took a day to fell just one, red, white, and black oak, poplar, maple, chestnut, walnut, and slippery elm. You milled each massive trunk here by the creek, bog too soft, so you built a timber bridge of chestnut culls and left slab heaps, rail spikes, and spindly logs below hillsides stumped and suddenly empty. Rain lifted the powdered soil and runneled it down to bury your debris in mud so deep the wood purpled instead of rotted until, 125 years later, we dug a pond, uncovering logs, salvaged and storied lumber. Thank you. To the man who quarried another hillside in 1795, poor whites and poorer slaves and boss men yelling to dig for iron, for zinc, for lead, for ore of any color. But you found none. Your horses exhausted, your shovels ringing empty. Instead of mines, you left ravines, 30 coffins deep, and bare wallow pits, and now, 200 years later, white pines tower alongside, filling each slough needle by needle, but still, each trench is barren, still, no soil, still. Thank you all. And to this dirt, who daily reminds us what death tastes like, and to these stumps, who sprout chestnut wands to blight year after year, and to this poplar we gouged while building our road, who still offers us shade and air, rain patter on leaves, and forgiveness if we begin to believe. For all this and more, thank you. Thank you.
The Piedmont Environmental Council's mission is to protect and restore the lands and waters of the Virginia Piedmont while building stronger, more sustainable communities. We envision a Virginia Piedmont where people act on a belief that conservation is essential to creating and maintaining vibrant, healthy communities. Our region is characterized by connected natural and cultural landscapes, thriving villages, towns, and cities, clean rivers and streams, and working farms and forests. It's a beautiful place where residents across all walks of life participate in decisions about its future.
A high boon. Call a gathering of land a hymn. This summit sings of continents colliding, of the Appalachian colossus, that stone serpent born becoming of their ram's crush. She sings a gathering of land, of foothills falling in folds like wings, of forests and fields blading through earth for sun, of prey and chase, of sown seeds and stalks grown from harrowed ground. She sings of nests and burrows and shelters of skin, wood, and rock, of hoof and talon, claw and foot, wind and water and iron wheel, all drumming passages ridge to sea. We join your wild hymn, like hammered silver we sing, leaf, blood, bone, and earth.
Virginia backroads, once hunting trails, then wagon roads, unmarked blacktop winds through hills and river bottoms, greening under last year's grass. Bare trees let in sunlight and slat the road with shade. Daffodils glow at long-gone homesteads where thick cedars line the banks. Hawk and vulture shadows flicker the ground. One redtail cruises fields below road grade. Green tunnels in the haze and whir of summer, arches of flame under steel fall skies, sparks of cardinals and juncos, woodpeckers working roadside snags. Black beef herds grazing hillsides, silos of a dairy farm, strutting crows in corn stubble. Life moves here at the speed of the land.
Intersection of Greenstone and Cherry Streets. Deep roots strengthen, river birch, sorghum, maple trees hold gentle hills, receiving switchbacks, red hair on blackberry bushes. Have you ever just felt the sun sharing secret circuits of the urban forest? Oasis connecting Greenstone to Cherry. An X-shaped trail heals neighborhoods. Involuntary organic compounds abound, endorphins rising, mycelium protecting the earth. Embedded bricks carry stories of the past, a nervous system regulated in the color green. Blue jay, northern cardinal, tuft titmouse sing, the future fluid as water.
My name is Georgie Voros, and I'm going to read a poem called The Unnaming. There's an epigraph from Paul Valéry: to see is to forget the name of the thing one sees. Me among you, trudging, crunching leaves, asking, forever asking, what's that called? That fern, that tree, that lichen. I roll the names around my tongue like small river stones. Black dash, nannyberry, silver-bordered fritillary. For histories and family trees, call them Euphais conspicua, Viburnum lentago, Boloria selene. The sounds wet my mouth, but do not quench my thirst. 2. A long stay past twilight. The headlamp illuminates all within its cone of light, leaves all without shrouded. Blinds feet to the feel of the rutted track. The light ricochets from crown to ground, disturbing birds and the whole nocturnal world. Futile to try to domesticate the dark, which breathes, pulses, shrieks and chirps, converses with itself, despite. 3. Does the doe peering out from behind the deadfall know she is a doe? Odo coelius virginianus. What have you to tell me about the ever-alert life of prey, the grand jetés over stone walls, or what dreams come while dozing in tall grass? And Amanita phalloides, death-cap to humans, a few grams enough to kill. Your name doesn't begin to hint at how squirrels and turtles thrive on you, how your hidden net of thread swaddles tree roots, feeds and waters them, how you travel the world, how you unfold overnight, how you do a myriad of things we don't yet, can maybe never know. 4. What if I turned the light off? What if I tripped and fell into the embrace of roots and rocks and weeds, a mouth or a maw? What would I know then? An intimacy I had not known before? What if I clicked the light off and listened to the backbeat of namelessness in a dark unlatched from language? What if I forgot my own name? That was The Unnaming by Georgie Voros.
Sutphen Farm Haiku. Above the water, stars in a milk glass river. Fish leap higher here. Gen X chemical compound. I want to forget. You live forever. B, you are lonely. Lighting on my empty ring finger. Cling softly. A lone deer grazes in the highest field 2 weeks before the hunters. Gliding space station masquerading as Venus slices through the moon.
Milking Devons. Burnished red cattle of ancient stock, 2 milking Devons wander creek lines. Along the new river meander. The look of a creek bed in winter on a Virginia farm. Gentle, crooked gash of trickling brook. Sycamores swing silver branches over these red cows bred for beef and rich cream both. Bluebirds curl into cedar houses near the farmer's split rail. Martins left last month for the south. The pastures carry footfalls of those from millennia past, of those who are caretakers now. Thank you.
I'm going to read the second of 3 poems from a piece called Brush Mountain Notebook, focused on the Brush Mountain Park, part of the New River Land Trust here in Blacksburg, Virginia. Had I seen the boulders up there, my friend Kristen asked. And I had, though not with her eyes, last week, running up and over the mountain, sore for 3 days after. I had been running on the bones of a Himalayan scale range, she said. She loved the way the ridgeline rock, 400 million years old, recorded and expressed a shallowing sea. Pebbles and sand and minerals washed down into the Appalachian Basin, compressed, lifted up, and then worn back down. That resistant layer, cemented with quartz, exposed in outcrops, had shed the boulders I must have seen, transferring the strength of the colloid, that white-gray conglomerate, a little pink, to the hillside itself, maintaining its topography. I loved her verbs, chipping away at vast expanses of time. We were in a coffee shop, her 8-month-old daughter taking it all in, glinting blue eyes, untouched by the wash of the crowd around us. Jimmy Price describes growing up on the mountain and hearing, as a child in the 40s, the chink of hammer and chisel against those stones. When you were beating on the rock was beating on you. There were at least 3 millstone mines along the side of the mountain, the last closing in 1955. I had pushed my way through rhododendron thickets and shattered boulders to where a new trail, named for a type of those stones, was just being built. I had seen the broken and discarded rocks without taking in the effort. How vast it all is, and how startling small we are, said Kristen. The strength of the cloyd grinding away at the grain. The wonder in her voice, offering itself up, giving to what resists our smallness.
Welcome to the Lower Appomattox River. The Friends of the Lower Appomattox River is a collaborative group dedicated to conserving this designated Virginia scenic river for all to enjoy. We envision a welcoming blueway greenway of extraordinary beauty and cultural richness that forever connects nature, people, and vibrant communities. We are committed to creating a welcoming place and the ability for everyone to actively connect, learn, share, and enjoy the benefits of a healthy river environment. The importance of FOLAR's mission is enormous, as is the potential strength of our communities and partners engaged in protecting and enhancing our Blueway Greenway, especially as a path to wellness, conservation, and prosperity. Each year, FOLAR builds on its work and grows as an organization and collaborative community project. We were so fortunate to work with Gwen, who perfectly highlights in all of her poetry the intrigue and wonder to be had along this portion of the river. So we hope that you enjoy her interpretations. We also hope that they inspire you to get in touch with your neighbors and nature. Happy trails from all of us at FOLAR.
Patton Park, plat number 461738 by Gwen R.C. Moses. Shoreline rapid surge, river groans bearing fallen soldiers, loblolly pines sorrow in dense formation, water caresses overgrown grasses, mere comfort of wind whispers, natives and indigenous everlasting grievances, entangled foliage grows of those forbade. Here lies what used to be a city among itself. Historical markers praise homesteads. A grid captures ownership slots. Industrialization plots best health. Fertile soil spits out forget-me-nots. Squaw Lane awaits centuries of delayed powwows. Dusty, communal gravel, silence in its days of dread. Fellow riverets claim embankments. Fishing holes provide food for the soul. Lots of chatter and motors spit smokes. Rocks carpet potholes and rough spots. Getaway paths lead to platforms of rocks. Stone walls resemble a chance spring. Trees' troughs are dried of water bursts. Low-hanging branches grieve the land's worth. Family-style quarters have been erased. Homesteads on the public display is fading away. Circles of gravel trimmed with patches of green. Obvious characteristic of interdependency. Spun tales of indigenous and natives whom spirits prevail. Amazing miles. Forsaken trust awaits another master plan.
Northern Neck Land Conservancy is a nationally accredited nonprofit land trust with a mission to preserve the rural heritage of our region by conserving its lands, water, economies, and culture for future generations. Northern Neck Land Conservancy supports landowners who volunteer to permanently protect their property. Together, we safeguard scenic views, water quality, wildlife, and working farms. The group has preserved 7,476 acres in its first 20 years. The Land Conservancy's vision is of a community that is unified in its respect for and dedication to the land, a community that is willing to help ensure that it is treasured and protected for years to come.
Nesting by Christina Hamlet. We were driven by a woman, a singer with David Bowie on the radio and coffee in her veins, deeper into the green, into the land. They fed me and my love well, joked with ease and familiarity. We're the Three Stooges. Our collective laughter permeated the air. We opened ourselves up, one man, two women, the trio at the heart of this fight, to protect this pocket of the world. The man craved the quiet, talked about his daughter in high school. One woman with a nose stud and welcome smile shared about her fear of bridges. I felt a soft, warm blue. Walking alongside the creek, our bellies rounded, he pointed upwards. My eyes did not know exactly where to go. He was surprised they were still here, the osprey. He was expecting an empty nest, bark, sticks, sod, on a lonely treetop. A pair had not left their Virginian home to find their old haunts in Argentina, Venezuela, maybe as far as Haiti. And as one season fades, they will return to swoop and dive and hunt, talons gripping the flesh of fish, flit and flutter above us all. Something was percolating inside of me. They come home too, back to what they know.
The Den by Jenna Filforth Veazey. Come, walk the dam, narrow road between pond and field, corn laid to rest post-harvest, and the field far from silent. Birds pick at the bare cob bones, then slip back into trees, the trees that curtain everything, the great Potomac from the field from the pond. Easy to miss the mud-clumped dome while taking in the cow lily or damselfly. Miss the slender, stripped saplings, a rack of spears, arrows unquivered, clear enough sign pointing to the beavers that lived here too.
The Land Also Knows by Maria Elena Scott. A cacophony of full-grown trees on scenic highway. A long driveway directs us to the historic two-story house. A cacophony of songbirds offer a cheery welcome. A sprinkling of tiny white flowers at my feet. Mama Earth's pulsating rhythm. A pond holds up a mirror for the celestial blue sky. A gentle breeze caresses my face and makes ripples on the surface of the pond. A bullfrog calls out like a brass trombone. Fish feed on the surface and make concentric circles. Mama Earth pulsating rhythm. Beige mature bamboo contrasts with the all-around greenery of maple trees. Fuchsia-colored flowers play peekaboo. Pregnant purple berries revel in the sun. Acres of crops, beans, and corn show off their tidy rows. Mama Earth's pulsating rhythm. A rusted shovel rests on a stub of pine tree. Overgrown broken branches hide burial grounds. One headstone alerts, in memory of Margaret. Long forgotten kinfolk stay away, but the land remembers. Thank you.